The stars stretched endlessly above the sleek silver corridors of the spaceport, and Commander Elias Trent walked briskly toward the shuttle that would take him to Valora Prime. The human fleet had made contact with several alien civilizations, but Valora Prime was different. It was powerful, vast, and its queen was known across the galaxy for intelligence and strength. Elias had trained for years, learning diplomacy, strategy, and survival, yet nothing in his experience prepared him for what awaited him on the alien world. He boarded the shuttle, the engines humming quietly as it lifted from the docking bay. The city below gleamed like a constellation of its own, crystal towers reflecting the sun's light, canals of shimmering liquid weaving between them, and ships of all sizes moving through the air. Elias could not help but feel a mixture of awe and unease. He was human, and he knew the rules of his own world. But here, on Valora Prime, everything was different. As the shuttle entered the planet's atmosphere, he saw the palace for the first time. It was enormous, built from materials that seemed alive. The walls pulsed with soft light, and the towers reached higher than anything he had ever seen on Earth. He could feel the power of the place even from the distance. The Valoran people were known for their discipline and their loyalty to the Queen, and Elias knew that entering this palace meant stepping into a world of careful calculation. He stepped out of the shuttle and was greeted immediately by a group of Valoran guards. Their armor glinted in the sunlight, sharp edges reflecting their strength and discipline. They did not speak at first, merely observing him, and Elias felt the weight of their gaze. He straightened his back and returned their nods respectfully. A small voice inside him whispered caution. Here, appearances mattered, and one wrong move could change everything. He was led through corridors that seemed alive with energy. Patterns of light shifted on the walls as he walked, soft colors changing from gold to deep blue, and he could hear faint music, almost like a heartbeat, echoing through the halls. It was beautiful and intimidating at the same time. The guards moved with perfect synchronicity, and Elias had to focus on keeping his own steps measured. Finally, they reached a grand hall, wider than anything Elias had ever seen, stretching endlessly into the distance. At the far end, sitting on a throne carved from crystals that glimmered like diamonds, was Queen Lara. She rose as he entered, her movements graceful and confident. Her eyes were sharp, yet there was a glint of curiosity in them. She was tall, taller than any human, with features that seemed both alien and regal. Her presence alone commanded attention. "Commander Trent," she said, her voice clear and commanding. "Welcome to Valora Prime." "Your Majesty," Elias said, bowing slightly, careful to follow the alien etiquette he had been taught.
"It is an honor to be here." Lyra studied him for a moment as if weighing his every thought, then smiled slightly. "You have courage, human."
"That is good. You will need it."
Before Elias could respond, she stepped forward and held out a small box. It was delicate, unlike anything he had expected from someone so powerful. He opened it, revealing a ring that shimmered with multiple colors, like the surface of a living planet.
"Put this on," Lyra said, her tone leaving no room for argument.
"And tell everyone we are married."
Elias blinked. His mind raced. Was this a test? A trap? Diplomacy had never demanded something so personal. "Your Majesty," he began cautiously, "I do not understand. Are you asking me to?"
"Yes,"
she interrupted.
"Put the ring on. Say the words."
The people must see it. The guards around him shifted slightly, alert, but they did not speak. Elias could feel the eyes of the Queen, sharp and unyielding, waiting for his answer. His training kicked in. In diplomacy, sometimes you had to act before understanding fully. Sometimes appearances mattered more than truth. He reached out, taking the ring in his hand. It was warm, almost alive, pulsing softly. As he placed it on his finger, a wave of light seemed to spread from the gem, reflecting on his skin. He realized that this was more than a symbol. It carried meaning, power, and perhaps even authority. Liara smiled, a small, knowing smile.
"Good. Now say it."
Tell everyone we are married." He looked around at the massive hall, at the guards, at the portals projecting the city beyond the palace. Then, in a voice steady despite the shock, he said, "I am married to Queen Lyra of Velora Prime." Silence followed for a moment. Then the soft hum of communication devices began to transmit his words across Velora Prime. The citizens, the council, the ambassadors, they all now knew. Elias felt a strange weight settle on his shoulders. The entire empire now expected him to act as the queen's partner. Lyra's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "You did well, human."
Do not fear. I do not demand obedience.
"I demand understanding, trust, and courage. You will need all three if you are to survive here, and perhaps even thrive." Elias nodded, trying to steady his racing mind. Trust, understanding, courage. These were qualities he had relied on throughout his career. But he had never faced a situation like this, a marriage in name only, perhaps, but one that carried the weight of an entire civilization. Over the next few hours he was guided through ceremonies, introductions, and protocols he had never imagined. The Veloran people treated him with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. He realized that he had to learn quickly, to observe and adapt, or he would make mistakes that could cost more than his reputation. As he walked through the palace gardens, Liara accompanied him. The plants glowed faintly, responding to her presence. "Commander," she said, "you may think this is strange, but appearances are everything in our world. To lead, you must first be accepted, and acceptance comes through perception. Today, the perception is that we are united. Tomorrow, the perception may change, depending on your actions." Elias nodded, absorbing every word. He had faced alien diplomacy before, but Lyra's approach was unlike anything he had encountered. It was not about brute force or fear. It was about influence, strategy, and control. And somehow he knew he would have to navigate this world carefully. As night fell on Velora Prime, the palace lit up like a star. Elias stood at the balcony, looking over the city. He could feel the pulse of the planet, the energy of its people, and the weight of his new role. He did not fully understand what Liara had planned, or why she had chosen him, but he knew one thing: his life had changed forever. The ring on his finger glowed softly, a constant reminder that he was no longer just a human commander. He was part of a story larger than anything he had imagined, one that involved an alien queen, an empire, and the fate of two worlds. Elias awoke to the soft hum of the palace, the light from the alien sky filtering through the crystalline windows. The ring on his finger glimmered faintly, a quiet reminder of the weight he now carried. He sat up, his mind replaying the events of the previous day. Queen Liara's bold command, the public announcement, the eyes of the entire Veloran Empire. None of it had sunk in fully. Yet he knew that hesitation now could cost him more than embarrassment. It could threaten the fragile peace between humans and Velorans. Breakfast was served in a grand dining hall, its walls shimmering with subtle patterns that seemed to shift with thought. Veloran attendants moved silently, placing dishes of unfamiliar foods before him. Some glowed faintly. Others had textures that were strange to his human senses. But Elias forced himself to eat, knowing that manners mattered as much as anything. Queen Liara arrived shortly after, her presence filling the room with an undeniable authority. She moved with elegance, her every step purposeful, and Elias felt both intimidated and drawn to her command of the space.
"You must learn quickly," Liara said as she sat across from him.
Velora Prime respects strength, intelligence, and adaptability. Your people may not understand, but you will have to show them all. 3 human.
I will do my best, Your Majesty. I want to understand, and I want to help.
Liara's eyes studied him for a long moment.
"Do you know why I chose you?"
she asked.
Elias hesitated.
Because I am human. Because I am a commander. Partly, she said, a small smile forming.
But mostly because you are unpredictable. You think differently from my advisors.
You see things in ways they cannot. That can be dangerous or valuable. Time will tell which. After breakfast, he was guided through the palace for the first of many introductions. Valoran ministers, counselors, and military leaders observed him with cautious eyes. Some bowed politely, others nodded with subtle evaluation. Elias realized that the marriage ring he wore was not just a symbol of personal union. It was a political statement. By being Lyra's consort, he was now an emblem of trust, loyalty, and cooperation between humans and Valorans. Every word, every gesture, every glance would be scrutinized. The first council meeting was more challenging than anything Elias had faced in human politics. Valoran protocols were precise, measured, and unlike anything he had encountered. Counselors spoke in sequences, their words layered with meaning. To interrupt or to misinterpret could be considered an insult. But Lyra had given him a subtle signal, a glance that meant he was to respond. Elias concentrated, drawing on all his training, listening for patterns, noting the subtle tone changes in their voices. When it was his turn, he spoke carefully, presenting human perspectives on upcoming trade negotiations. Some counselors frowned, others whispered quietly, but Liara nodded at him subtly, a signal that he was doing well. Elias felt a surge of relief. He was learning, adapting, and slowly earning respect. After the meeting, Liara took him to the palace gardens. The alien plants shimmered faintly under her touch, responding to her presence.
You did well, she said. But this is only the beginning. You must understand our ways if you are to survive, and if you are to help me guide this empire. Elias took in the garden, its colors and light unlike anything on earth. Your Majesty, it is beautiful, he said. But I must admit, I still feel out of place. Lyra smiled faintly.
You will always feel out of place, human.
That is natural. What matters is that you act with respect, courage, and intelligence.
That is how you earn your place here.
The following days were filled with intense lessons. Elias studied Valoran culture, military strategy, and diplomacy. He observed Lyra closely, noting her command style, the way she could shift moods with subtle words, how she commanded respect without raising her voice. Every encounter with her, every lesson, was a test, and Elias felt both challenged and invigorated. One evening, as they walked through the palace corridors, Lyra spoke quietly.
Commander, there are factions in my council who do not trust you.
They see you as a human, an outsider, someone who could disrupt our plans. You must earn their trust through action, not words.
Elias understood the subtle warning. Trust here was fragile.
It could be gained through deeds, loyalty, and courage, but it could be lost in an instant through a single mistake. He realized that survival in Valora Prime required more than intelligence. It required observation, understanding, and careful strategy. Soon, he was invited to join Liara in public ceremonies. The first was a diplomatic gathering, where ambassadors from neighboring systems observed the human consort of the Queen. Elias was expected to stand beside Liara, answer questions, and maintain composure under intense scrutiny. He felt nervous, knowing that any misstep could be amplified. But as he listened, observed, and responded, he found a rhythm. He realized that his human instincts, directness, honesty, and adaptability, were often valued in ways his alien counterparts did not anticipate. Liara watched him with quiet approval. "You see, human," she said later, "your uniqueness is your strength. You will have to rely on it often." Despite the growing confidence, Elias faced moments of doubt. The weight of the ring, the expectations, the constant scrutiny, and the political games were exhausting. He missed the familiar comforts of Earth, the simplicity of human camaraderie, and the certainty of clear commands. But each time he faltered, Liara's presence reminded him that adaptation was essential. Then came the news of an unexpected crisis. One of the outer Valoran colonies reported unrest. A neighboring empire had sent a small fleet to challenge Valora Prime's influence, and the colony's leadership feared conflict. Liara called Elias to her strategy room. "This is your first test beyond the palace," she said. "You will observe, advise, and participate.
The decisions here affect the entire empire."
The strategy room was unlike anything Elias had seen. Holographic maps hovered in midair, showing fleets, star systems, and potential outcomes. Lyra moved pieces with precision, her mind calculating multiple scenarios simultaneously. Elias realized that the Queen's reputation for intelligence was not exaggerated. Her strategic thinking was brilliant. He listened, contributed where he could, and offered human perspectives that Lyra used to challenge traditional Valoran tactics. Over the following weeks, Elias traveled with Lyra's fleet, learning alien technology, understanding Valoran warfare, and observing the subtle interactions between soldiers and officers. The humans he had left behind seemed distant in comparison to the intensity of these experiences. Yet he began to feel a connection, not just to Liara, but to her people, their culture, and their drive to survive and thrive in a complex galaxy. One night, while the fleet was docked in orbit around a distant planet, Liara called him to the observation deck. Stars stretched infinitely, the vastness of space reminding him of the fragility of life and civilization. "Elias," she said quietly, "you have done well, but there is more to leadership than strategy and courage. You must understand loyalty, empathy, and trust. Your actions shape perception, and perception shapes reality. Never forget that."
Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He had grown in ways he had never imagined, forced to balance human instincts with alien expectations.
The marriage, once a symbol of confusion and shock, had become a bridge between him and Liara, between humans and Valorans, between worlds.
As Part 2 ended, Elias felt a deep sense of purpose.
The challenges were many, the risks high, but he realized that he could adapt, survive, and even influence the course of events. The ring on his finger pulsed softly in the dim light, a reminder that he was no longer merely a human commander. He was part of a greater story, one where courage, trust, and understanding could reshape the destiny of two species. The alert sirens rang across Valora Prime's outer colonies, echoing through the palace halls and vibrating in Elias's chest. The neighboring empire had mobilized a fleet faster than anyone had predicted, threatening the fragile alliances that Queen Lyra had painstakingly built over decades. Elias was called immediately to the strategy room, his uniform crisp, his mind alert, and the ring on his finger a constant reminder of the responsibility he now carried. Lyra was already there, her eyes scanning the holographic displays that floated in the center of the room. Ships blinked in red and gold, moving along paths that threatened key Valoran colonies. Counselors huddled near her, whispering in their own language, voices filled with urgency and tension. Elias stepped forward, careful not to disrupt the delicate balance of authority and protocol.
"Elias," Lyra said without looking at him, "this is your first real test.
Observe, advise, and be ready to act when the time comes. The Empire depends on more than strategy. It depends on trust, courage, and judgment.
Your actions now will define your role as my consort and as a human in this alliance."
Elias nodded, swallowing the rising anxiety. He had faced dangerous missions before, but never like this. This was not just a battle of ships and weapons. It was a test of diplomacy, leadership, and survival. A wrong decision here could cost thousands of lives, and the fragile trust between humans and Valorans could collapse entirely. The first orders were issued, and the Valoran fleet launched into the void. The ships moved with precision, their engines leaving streaks of light against the dark backdrop of space. Elias watched as Liara's command staff gave instructions, and he began to understand the complexity of their coordination. Unlike humans, The Valorans calculated multiple outcomes simultaneously, their strategy almost like a dance of thought. As the first wave of enemy ships approached, Elias noticed hesitation among some of the younger Valoran officers. He could feel the tension in the room, the fear that the unknown enemy might overwhelm them. Drawing on his human instincts, he spoke up carefully. "If we divide the fleet into 3 formations, we can flank them while keeping the main colony protected. Their ships are faster in straight lines, but their turning radius is limited."
"We can use that!" Lyra's head tilted slightly, her eyes finally meeting his.
"Interesting," she said, voice calm but commanding. "Your insight may save lives. Prepare the flanking teams immediately." Orders were relayed, and Elias found himself in the command center aboard the flagship. He had to communicate with Valoran captains, human observers, and AI systems, translating his human logic into Valoran's strategy. The first skirmishes erupted in the darkness of space. Pulses of energy fired, ships maneuvered, and explosions painted the void in harsh flashes of light. Elias remained calm, directing the fleets as best he could, while Liara observed silently. Every successful maneuver bolstered his confidence, but each near miss reminded him that this was far more dangerous than simulations or training. He began to understand what Liara had meant about trust, not only trusting others, but earning their trust through courage and action. During a critical moment, a Valoran cruiser was cornered by 3 enemy fighters. The officers hesitated, waiting for orders. Elias acted on instinct, issuing commands that coordinated reinforcements, allowing the cruiser to escape. The enemy ships were destroyed in a sudden burst of energy. Liara's gaze was sharp, assessing him, but when he met her eyes, she gave the slightest nod. Elias felt a surge of relief. He had earned a small measure of her trust. The battle raged for hours. Each decision carried weight. Lives depended on precision, but also on intuition. Elias discovered that Valorans valued both. Their calculations were powerful, but human judgment and adaptability could provide the unexpected edge. He realized that his humanity was not a weakness here. It was an asset. When the final wave of enemy ships was pushed back, the human commander and alien queen stood together on the observation deck of the flagship. The stars stretched endlessly, quiet now after the chaos. The city of Valora Prime glimmered far below, untouched by the conflict, thanks to their combined efforts. Liara turned to him. "You performed well," she said. "Not because you are human, but because you trusted yourself, and you acted with courage. That is how alliances are built, through action and reliability, not words alone."
Elias breathed deeply. He was exhausted, but there was a strange satisfaction in knowing he had contributed meaningfully.
He had faced the unknown, adapted quickly, and survived. More importantly, he had begun to understand the subtle interplay of leadership, strategy, and loyalty that defined Valoran culture. Over the next days, Elias accompanied Lyra to colonies affected by the battle. He observed her interacting with civilians, soldiers, and council members. She commanded respect effortlessly, not through fear, but through clarity, fairness, and decisiveness. Her people trusted her judgment because she had proven herself repeatedly, and Elias began to grasp that leadership was not about dominating others, it was about inspiring them. At one colony, a group of Valoran children approached Elias. They were curious, unafraid, and fascinated by the human who now stood beside their queen. One small boy reached out to touch the ring on Elias's finger. Elias knelt, careful not to scare the child. "This is part of my duty," he said softly. "It shows that I am trusted by the queen and her people. And now I am trusted by you, too." The child smiled, and Elias felt a warmth he had not expected. In that moment, he understood that his role was not only political or military, it was symbolic. His presence, his actions, and his choices represented the connection between humans and Valorans, and that connection could change the galaxy. Later, as he and Lyra returned to the palace, they discussed the future. "Commander," she said, "you have proven your courage in battle, but the greatest challenges are still ahead."
You must learn to anticipate threats, manage alliances, and inspire loyalty. You will be tested in ways that are not physical, but every bit as dangerous. Elias listened carefully, absorbing her words. He realized that this union, once confusing and abrupt, was becoming something deeper, a partnership that relied on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. The ring was no longer merely a symbol of coercion. It had become a sign of responsibility, honor, and commitment. As days passed, Elias continued to train with the Valoran forces, learning their advanced technology, tactics, and communication systems. He also spent time with Lara in private, observing her decision-making process, asking questions, and offering human perspectives. Slowly, he found that their bond was strengthening, not as a marriage in the human sense, but as a partnership built on mutual reliance and shared purpose. One evening, a message arrived from Earth. Human diplomats were curious about Valora Prime's recent developments and the sudden alliance with the Queen. Elias read the reports carefully, aware that any communication back to humans had to be precise, respectful, and in line with Valoran expectations. Miscommunication could spark mistrust or even conflict. He drafted his reply carefully, translating human intentions into terms the Valorans would understand. Liara reviewed it, her expression approving.
You are learning quickly, she said.
Your people may not understand our ways yet, but you are bridging two worlds. That is a rare and valuable skill. He had grown far beyond the human commander he had been when he first arrived. Each challenge, each decision, each test had strengthened him. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and cultural differences, and he had adapted. He was no longer simply an observer in this alien world. He was an active participant, trusted by the Queen, the Council, and increasingly by the people themselves. The events of Part 3 closed with a quiet night over Valora Prime. Elias stood on a balcony with Liara, the city lights twinkling below, the stars infinite above.
Tomorrow, Liara said softly, we will face new challenges, but tonight, remember this. You have proven that courage, trust, and intelligence can bridge worlds.
That is the essence of leadership, and it is the essence of hope. Elias looked at the glowing ring on his finger and then at Lyra. He understood now that his journey was just beginning. The trials of battle, diplomacy, and trust had shaped him, but greater challenges lay ahead. And yet, for the first time, he felt ready, not only to survive, but to play a part in shaping the future of two civilizations. The morning sun rose over Valora Prime, casting long streaks of light across the crystalline towers. Commander Elias Trent stood beside Queen Lyra, both observing the preparations for the grand ceremony that would solidify their union in the eyes of the galaxy. This was no longer merely a marriage of appearances. It was a symbol of alliance, trust, and shared purpose between humans and Valorans. The weight of responsibility pressed on Elias, but he felt a quiet confidence that he had not known before. He was no longer a stranger in this world. He had become part of it. The palace courtyard was filled with dignitaries, ambassadors, and citizens from across the empire. Vibrant banners fluttered in the alien breeze, each representing a different system allied with Valora Prime. Holographic displays projected images of the human fleet and colonies, demonstrating the growing connection between the two species. Elias glanced at Liara, whose eyes sparkled with determination and pride. She was regal, commanding, yet there was a softness in her expression, reserved only for him. As the ceremony began, a hush fell over the crowd. Elias and Liara stepped forward together, their presence radiating unity. The counselors spoke, recounting the trials that had led to this moment, the threats from neighboring empires, the battles fought to protect the colonies, and the trust forged between human and Valoran forces. Elias listened carefully, absorbing every word. He understood that this moment was not only ceremonial, but strategic. Perception mattered as much as reality. To the galaxy, he and Lyra were a symbol of a powerful alliance. Lyra took his hand and led him to the center of the courtyard. She held a staff of authority,
an ancient symbol of Valoran leadership, and placed it beside him. The glowing ring on his finger pulsed softly, catching the eyes of everyone present. It was a reminder that he had earned his place, not through coercion or fear, but through action, courage, and wisdom. The first ambassador stepped forward, representing a human colony in the outer system. He spoke carefully, acknowledging Elias's role and the human contribution to the Empire's defense. The crowd listened attentively, and Elias realized that he was bridging worlds in ways far beyond personal experience. Every word, every gesture, every decision contributed to this fragile and precious bond between species. As the ceremony continued, a group of young Valoran warriors approached. They had fought alongside him in the recent conflict, and their eyes held respect. One of them, a tall warrior with silver markings on his face, stepped forward and bowed. "Commander Elias Trent," he said, "you have proven yourself to the Queen, to your people, and to us. You are worthy of your place." Elias nodded, humbled by their recognition. He had faced battles, navigated unfamiliar customs, and earned trust, but this acknowledgement brought a deeper satisfaction. He realized that leadership was not about titles or symbols. It was about earning respect through courage and integrity. The ceremony reached its climax. Lyra raised her hand, and the holographic projections shimmered, showing the galaxy united under the principles of trust, courage, and cooperation. "Today," she announced, her voice clear and commanding, "we recognize the unity between humans and Valorans. This union is not only symbolic, but a pledge to work together for the prosperity of all systems. Commander Elias Trent stands with me as partner, advisor, and ally. Let the galaxy know that we are united." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Elias felt a surge of emotion. He had never imagined that a sudden command to wear a ring could lead to this moment. A moment where humans and Valorans could truly begin to understand one another. He looked at Liara, whose expression reflected pride, relief, and something he could not quite define. Trust that went beyond words. After the ceremony, the council convened to discuss the next steps. Elias participated actively, offering insights from the human perspective, while respecting Valoran protocol. Together, they planned trade agreements, defense strategies, and cultural exchanges. Elias realized that his role was more than symbolic. He was an active participant in shaping the future of the Empire and its alliances. His humanity provided perspectives that complemented the Valoran approach, creating a balance that strengthened both sides. Over the following weeks, Elias and Liara visited key colonies to ensure the agreements were respected and to demonstrate the strength of their alliance. In each place, humans and Valorans worked together, sharing knowledge, technology, and culture. Elias found himself learning constantly, not just about Valoran systems, but about leadership, diplomacy, and empathy. Lyra guided him carefully, allowing him to act independently, while ensuring that their partnership remained cohesive. One day, while visiting a border colony that had previously faced threats from rival empires, Elias walked among the citizens. He observed families, children, and soldiers living together in peace, a stark contrast to the chaos that had threatened them. He realized that his actions, combined with Lyra's guidance, had tangible effects. The human presence, once seen as foreign and uncertain, had become a source of hope. Liara joined him, her eyes scanning the colony. "Do you see, Elias?" she asked softly.
"This is what your courage and integrity have achieved. It is not the battles you fought alone, nor the strategies you suggested. It is the trust you have built. That is the greatest strength any leader can have."
Elias smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never known. He understood now that leadership was a combination of action, empathy, and courage. The ring on his finger was no longer a burden. It was a reminder of the trust he had earned and the responsibility he carried. As they returned to the palace, Elias reflected on the journey. From the sudden command to wear the ring, to navigating Valoran customs, surviving battles, and earning trust, every step had shaped him. He had grown beyond the human commander who first arrived. He was now a bridge between worlds, a symbol of hope, and a trusted partner to the Queen. Back in the palace, Lyra and Elias reviewed the strategic reports for the coming months.
The galaxy is changing, Liara said. Threats will continue, and challenges will arise.
But together, humans and Valorans can face them. Your presence here ensures that we do not face the future alone. Elias nodded, feeling the weight of truth in her words. He had not only survived the trials of Valora Prime, but he had also thrived, using his humanity as a strength rather than a weakness. He understood now that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Trust was not given lightly, but it could be earned through integrity and action. The weeks turned into months, and the alliance strengthened. Humans and Valorans worked side by side, sharing technology, culture, and knowledge. Elias continued to learn from Liara, while also contributing his own perspective. Their partnership was no longer a matter of appearance. It was a genuine collaboration built on respect, trust, and shared purpose. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of the palace watching the stars stretch infinitely above Valora Prime, Lyra spoke quietly. Elias, do you realize what you have achieved? You have become more than a human commander. You are a symbol of hope, a bridge between worlds, and a partner in shaping the future. Elias looked at the glowing ring on his finger, then at Lyra. I never imagined it would be like this, he admitted. At first, I thought it was a test, a trap even. But now, I understand.
This is bigger than me. Bigger than us. It is about what we can build together.
Lyra smiled, a warmth in her eyes that matched the quiet glow of the city below. Yes, Elias, together we can face any challenge. Together we can inspire trust and courage across the galaxy. And together we can ensure that our worlds, human and Valoran, thrive in unity. As the stars twinkled above and the city shimmered below, Elias felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had been difficult, full of unexpected trials and challenges, but it had also been transformative. He had grown, adapted, and earned a place of trust and respect. The ring on his finger was no longer just a symbol of command or coercion. It was a symbol of unity, courage, and hope. And as he stood beside Queen Lara, he realized that the greatest victories were not won with weapons or strategies alone, but with trust, courage, and the willingness to bridge worlds. The future was uncertain, full of challenges yet to come, but Elias knew that he was ready. Together, they would face the galaxy, united in purpose, strength, and vision. The story closed with a quiet triumph. Not in battle, not in ceremony, but in the bonds forged between human and alien, commander and queen, and between two species destined to shape the stars together. Elias Trent, the human commander, had become more than he had ever imagined, a true hero in the vast expanse of the galaxy.